Howard did everything right. 41 years of work, maxed his 401k for 2 decades straight, drove the same truck for 11 years, never carried a credit card balance, retired at 63 with $780,000 in net worth and a home that was completely paid off. And then 18 months into retirement, he made one decision that quietly cost him $47,000. He didn't gamble, he didn't get scammed, he didn't make a bad investment, he upgraded his house. Here's what makes that number brutal. Howard is not an exception. Researchers who track retirement finances found that retirees who upgrade their primary residence in the first 5 years after leaving work lose an average of $47,000 in net worth compared to similar retirees who stayed put, not in one moment, not in one bill, slowly, invisibly, in ways that don't show up until the damage is already done. And yet the real estate industry, the financial media, your neighbors, maybe even your own kids, they will all tell you the upgrade is the reward, that you've earned it, that this is exactly what people in your position do. So here's the question I want you sitting with for the next 15 minutes. Why do the retirees who end up most financially secure, the ones with real freedom in their 70s and 80s, almost never upgrade their homes? Not because they can't afford it, because they understand something about that decision that most people never figure out until it's too late. If you're retired or within 10 years of it, and this question has crossed your mind even once, stay with me. What I'm about to show you is not what the industry wants you to know. Before we go further, if you find this kind of analysis useful, hit subscribe. No fluff, no hype, just the mechanics that actually matter. Now, let's talk about the biggest financial myth most Americans carry into retirement without ever questioning it. The idea that your home is an investment. Think about where that belief came from. You bought your first house in your 30s. Over the years, the value went up. You felt wealthier. The equity grew. And every financial magazine, every cable news segment, every dinner party conversation reinforced the same message. Real estate always goes up. Then 2008 happened. Values collapsed. And yet here's the strange part. The myth survived. Because by 2012, prices started climbing again. And by 2021, the average American home had more than doubled in value from its post-crash low. For people who are retiring right now, people in their early to mid-60s, that boom is their entire adult financial memory. They watched their home appreciate for decades. Of course it feels like an asset, but here's the mechanism nobody explains clearly. An asset puts money into your pocket, a liability takes money out, your home, the one you live in, takes money out every single month, property taxes, insurance, maintenance, utilities, HOA fees if you have them, the roof that needs replacing every 20 years, the HVAC system that doesn't care what your retirement date was. The equity is real, but equity is not cash flow. You cannot eat equity. You cannot pay your doctor with equity, not without selling or borrowing, both of which have their own costs. Here's the analogy I want you to hold on to for this entire video. Think of your home like a boat. The two best days of owning a boat are the day you buy it and the day you sell it. Everything in between is maintenance, storage, insurance, and the slow realization that the boat owns you more than you own the boat. Your primary residence works the same way. And upgrading it in retirement is like trading your manageable boat for a bigger one right at the moment when you can least afford the upkeep. The real estate industry knows this. They just don't say it out loud because their business model depends on you believing the upgrade is a reward. We'll come back to that. But first, let me show you exactly what happened to Howard. Year 0. The decision. Howard and his wife spend 4 months looking. They find a place, 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, a finished basement, a neighborhood they've always admired. The asking price is $420,000. Their current home is worth $260,000, paid off. The math feels simple. Sell the old house, use the equity as a down payment, finance the difference, monthly payment around $800. They can handle that on Social Security plus Howard's pension. The realtor tells them this is a smart move. The financial media would call it leveraging your equity. Their kids think it's exciting. Howard signs the papers. And here's where the timeline gets interesting because the costs that hit him first are not the ones he planned for. Years 1 and 2. The costs nobody mentioned. The new house is in a slightly higher tax bracket. Property taxes jump from $3,200 a year to $5,800. That's an extra $217 a month right away before he's even unpacked. Homeowner's insurance on a larger home in a newer neighborhood, up by $90 a month. The HOA, which the realtor described as very reasonable, runs $215 a month. Howard also discovers the finished basement has a moisture issue, $12,000 to fix. The deck needs restaining. The landscaping the previous owners maintained, that's his problem now. He hires a service, $110 every 2 weeks. Added up. Not counting the mortgage, just the operational cost the upgrade introduced. Howard is spending an extra $630 a month compared to his old house. That's $7,560 a year. Just in new overhead. He didn't plan for that. Nobody told him to. Now, $630 a month might not sound catastrophic on paper, but here's what makes it dangerous in retirement specifically, and why it's different from carrying those costs at 52 instead of 63. When you're retired, every dollar you pull from your portfolio carries a risk that didn't exist when you were working. It's called sequence of returns risk. Here's what it means in plain language. If the market drops 30% in year 2 of your retirement, which it has done historically multiple times, and you are also pulling money out to cover living expenses, you are selling shares at the bottom. You lock in those losses, and the math of recovery becomes brutal. A portfolio that drops 50% needs to gain 100% just to break even. If you're drawing it down while it's falling, you may never recover. Howard's extra $630 a month is not just $630. It's $630 of forced withdrawals during potentially the worst sequence of market returns he'll ever face, the first 5 years of retirement. Years 3 through 5. Where the $47,000 actually comes from. And I mentioned that number at the top, $47,000. Now you've seen 2 of the 3 layers that build it. Here's how the math actually assembles. Transaction costs on Howard's move, realtor commissions on both sides, closing costs, moving expenses. The repairs needed to make the old house sellable came to just over $19,000. Gone before he spent a single night in the new place. That's layer 1. Layer 2. The carrying cost differential. $630 extra a month compounded over 5 years, pulled from a portfolio that may be absorbing market losses at the same time. That's another $38,000 in withdrawals. Withdrawals that, under sequence of returns, pressure cost significantly more than their face value. Layer 3 is the one nobody calculates. The opportunity cost, not in one bill, not in one dramatic moment. In the slow, invisible accumulation of all 3 transaction costs, carrying costs, opportunity costs, spread across years in ways that never appear on a single statement. The $260,000 in equity Howard had built in his paid-off home, he recycled most of it into a new mortgage. That capital is no longer liquid. It's no longer in his portfolio, compounding. At a conservative 6% annual return, $260,000 over 10 years becomes $465,000. He traded a future $465,000 asset for a house that makes him feel, in his own words, like he finally made it. Year 5 and beyond. The paradox. Howard has a beautiful home, 4 bedrooms, a finished basement he uses for storage, a guest room that gets used maybe 8 nights a year. He also has less liquidity than he's had since his 40s. His monthly overhead is higher. His portfolio is smaller than it should be. And when his wife mentions maybe traveling to Portugal, something they always talked about, Howard does the math and says, not this year. The house didn't give him freedom. It consumed it. That's the timeline. And here's what makes it so effective as a trap. It never feels like a mistake while it's happening. Every individual step felt reasonable. The mistake wasn't one decision. It was a sequence of decisions that each made sense in isolation and were catastrophic in combination. So where does that leave you? Because Howard's situation isn't rare. It's the median. Let me give you 2 scenarios, because the math changes depending on where you are. And if you're finding this useful, drop a comment below. It helps more than you know. Scenario A. You're heading into retirement with around $500,000 in total net worth. Maybe $300,000 in your 401k or IRA. Your home is worth $200,000 with $120,000 left on the mortgage. At this net worth level, a home upgrade is not just expensive, it is potentially ruinous. Here's why. If you sell your current home and net $80,000 after the mortgage payoff and transaction costs, and you roll that into a new home at $350,000, you've tied up most of your liquid equity in an illiquid asset, right at the moment, your income drops permanently. Your investable assets stay at $300,000. At a 4% withdrawal rate, the standard retirement rule of thumb, that gives you $12,000 a year to supplement Social Security. That's $1,000 a month. Now add the carrying costs of the upgrade. You're not traveling. You're not handling emergencies comfortably. You're watching your portfolio closely every single month. That is not financial security. That is financial anxiety with a nicer zip code. The psychological trap at this level. You think upgrading will make you feel successful. What it actually does is make your retirement feel more precarious, because it is scenario B. You're entering retirement with $900,000 to $1.2 million in net worth. Now, the math is different. You could absorb the upgrade. The $47,000 average hit won't collapse your retirement. But here's what's more subtle and, honestly, more dangerous. At this wealth level, the emotional pull toward upgrading is stronger, not weaker, because now you genuinely feel like you've earned it. The financial media will confirm that feeling. Your kids will be proud. The realtor will tell you this is exactly what people in your position do. And the cost is real but invisible. It doesn't threaten your survival. It just quietly reduces your margin. Your ability to help a grandchild with college. Your ability to absorb a health event without restructuring your entire portfolio. Your ability to say yes to things without calculating first. The people who end up with the most financial freedom in their late 70s are almost never the ones who upgraded at 63. They're the ones who kept the paid-off house, kept the capital working, and spent on experiences instead of infrastructure. There's a meaningful difference between those two things. One compounds your life, the other compounds your overhead. The psychological trap at this level, I can afford it, is not the same as it serves me. The upgrade feels like a reward for decades of discipline, but discipline is exactly what got you here. Abandoning it at the finish line is the cruelest irony in retirement finance. So what do you actually do with this? 3 steps, concrete ones. Step 1, calculate the real cost of the upgrade, not the purchase price. Take the price of the home you're considering, add closing costs, typically 2 to 5% of the purchase price, add moving expenses, add the cost to prepare your current home for sale, add the first year increase in property taxes, insurance, and HOA, add an estimate for deferred maintenance on the new property. That number, not the listing price, is what the upgrade actually cost you on day 1. Most people are shocked. Do this before you attend a single open house. Step 2, run the opportunity cost scenario. Take the net equity you'd extract from your current home. Open a compound interest calculator. There are free ones everywhere online. Plug in that amount, a 6% annual return, and a 10-year horizon. That's the number you're trading away. Not abstractly specifically. Write it down, put it next to the listing photos, make the comparison real. Step 3, apply the 90-day rule before any decision. If the idea of upgrading is alive in your household, agree to revisit it in 90 days without taking any action. No open houses, no realtor calls, no Zillow browsing. In 90 days, ask this question. Is the desire still as strong, or was it triggered by a moment, a neighbor's move, a family comment, a feeling of restlessness in early retirement? Most of the time, the urgency fades, and the $47,000 stays where it belongs in your portfolio. Here's the question we opened with. Why do financially secure retirees almost never upgrade their homes? Not because they're cheap, not because they don't appreciate comfort, not because they're afraid of spending money they've earned. It's because they've separated 2 things that the market works very hard to keep tangled together: comfort and upgrade. Comfort is real. You should have it. A home that fits your life, that's easy to maintain, that feels like yours, that has genuine value. Nobody is arguing against that. But the upgrade, the bigger square footage, the newer kitchen, the neighborhood that impresses people that's not comfort, that's performance. It's a signal sent to other people about where you've arrived. And here's the part that should make you angry. The real estate industry generates billions of dollars in commissions from retirees making this exact decision. The financial media runs content, sponsored and otherwise, that reinforces the idea that your home is your best investment, that upgrading at retirement is the natural reward for a life of work, that you've earned this. They've earned something too. Every time you upgrade, they earn between 5 and 6% of the transaction price. On a $400,000 home, that's $20,000 to $24,000 gone before you've slept there once. They are not advising you. They are selling to you. The retirees who figured this out, the ones who stayed put, kept the paid-off house, kept the capital working, they didn't do it because someone told them to. They did it because at some point they stopped asking, what does this say about me? And started asking, what does this do for me? That's the shift. It sounds simple. It is not easy. Howard, by the way, figured it out. About 3 years in, he and his wife had a long conversation. They couldn't undo the decision, but they could stop compounding it. They stopped the optional upgrades. They redirected what they could back into the portfolio. They started saying yes to the trips. He told me, and I'm paraphrasing, the house is beautiful, but I bought it for the wrong reasons, and it took me $230 a month in HOA fees to figure that out. So here's what you know now that most people don't. Your home is not your best investment. It is your largest expense with the best marketing department in the history of consumer finance. The financially secure retirees don't upgrade because they know the difference between a reward and a trap, and they know that sometimes those two things look identical from the outside. If this changed how you're thinking about a decision that's currently on your table, leave a comment. I read them.